Admit all. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
So it's 1 o'clock. We'll give like a minute or two just to let everybody, people are filing in right now.
Seeing a bunch of familiar names. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Just giving folks another minute to come in and then we'll get started.
Obviously, I'll just run through like the housekeeping stuff that we usually go over at the beginning, but I will be monitoring the chat throughout. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in there. We will, like after each section, Russell will probably take a pause here and there to see if there's anything that we need clarification on about the stuff that he's going over. Okay. Okay. All right. So I guess we'll just go get started because I think most
Yep.
people are here that have registered. So obviously, thank you again for being here today. There's always interest when we're talking AI. So excited to see everybody here. Copilot has changed a lot over the past year with all the updates, and I know that it can be really hard to keep track of what actually matters and then what's just noise. So that's what we're going to focus on today. What's new, what's changed, and what's worth paying attention to. So with that, I'll hand it over to our expert, Russell, and he will walk us through Copilot in 2026 and how teams are really using it today.
Perfect. Thank you, Sonia, as always. And for folks that are coming in late or have colleagues that can't make it, per usual, we'll have this posted to our YouTube channel in a day or two as well. So as Sonia said, please put your questions in the chat so we don't lose track of them. We should have time to get to everything today. All right, hit go here. And yep, so we just covered what's changed. It's been a lot in the last 6 months. We did our last Copilot webinar in September. What you now have access to without a paid license, which is quite a lot and probably enough for most of your staff, spoiler, and some industry examples from our verticals and some general tips. Uh, so let's get started. So as I said, the last webinar was in September. Covered a lot of good stuff. It is on our YouTube. Do recommend you go back and check it. A lot of those things apply. The interesting thing is a lot of the stuff we showed then required a paid license. A lot of that stuff is now built in to your regular Office licensing. So what we're going to do today is take a look at that. Uh, we saw September 15th, they started phasing in Copilot Chat for all Microsoft Business license users. They've got new updates coming out on a constant basis. Big news is March and in the spring. Copilot licenses used to only be available for an annual term, so it was a big $360 commitment. Now you can do month by month, so you can do some testing out. We'll talk about that today. We have access to new large language models or LLMs, Claude Sonnet, and different versions of ChatGPT. That just happened in the last 2 weeks, or 3 weeks actually. And then we also have Copilot being removed from some areas too. So we'll talk about that. And of course, it's Microsoft. We got some new pricing coming in. It's actually good news though. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when we get to that. All right. So first off, we want to just kind of do a little finger on the pulse, see how your organizations are using Copilot right now. So look at these numbers. Go ahead and type in the chat where your organization is at right now, which number most closely represents how you're using Copilot currently. And Sonia and I just want to kind of see where most folks are at. No wrong answers here. So are you one, two, three, four, etc.? Come on, folks.
I
Pick a number.
mean, one is like trending right now as the
Hmm.
most popular, but there's a seven, a
Hmm.
three, a two.
Okay. All right. Very good. So that's what we're kind of seeing by and large. There's a lot of people that are still getting used to it, starting to use it because you've only had access for a few months in a lot of cases. We also see a lot of individual usage happening. So the people that have been using it for the last couple months are tending to use it by themselves, interactively as a chat. Um, we are starting now to see some phasing into teams starting to use it cohesively. We're going to talk about that at the end. So I think the good news is there really aren't any wrong answers here. We are seeing a spectrum of usage across our clients, but we do see everybody, wanting to start taking that step. And that's an important one. So I think this is helpful. We are going to cover a lot of, for the number one folks, how to start using it today and get into it further. All right. So it's an important question right now, and this is one of the reasons we wanted to have this presentation this month with these licensing changes, is that they can be expensive. A month-by-month license for the Copilot add-on is still $30. So that's $360 a year times all your employees. That can add up. So you want to make sure you're making a correct licensing decision. We find too that we kind of have a mix across our client base where because we haven't looked at the licensing with as much detail as maybe we should, some organizations are under licensing users who could benefit a lot from it, and probably less so. We think occasionally see people that have a paid license that maybe don't need it. So we also see this big problem, and we want to address this today, is if you're not providing AI tools for your staff, especially your younger staff, they will go out and find them on their own. That's what we call shadow AI. And we want to address that issue because what we want is your staff using AI in safe ways, responsibly, not exposing or leaking company information. And where if they're using a public tool or a free tool or a less known AI, they may be doing those things. So it's important as an organization to get out in front of this, to be providing and training your staff on safe ways to use AI so you can control that usage. Let's take a look at some key terms before we get going here too much. And we can pause here after that if you need any clarification. So first off is Copilot Chat or the Copilot app. That's the Copilot program that you interact with. It's built into Windows. It's available as a download from the Apple or Android stores if you're on a Mac or phone. It's integrated with the Microsoft Office suite. We're going to look at that a lot today. We have also the Copilot paid or the paid license, and the base price is $30 a user. We're going to look at what that actually gets you today versus what it did back in September. Very important, we're going to do a whole slide on this. I'm going to come back to this, but grounding modes, that's where Copilot is looking for answers when you ask it questions. This is the biggest determinant as to what license is the right for each person. So we're going to spend a little time on this. But in short, it can look at the web. It can look at specific documents you provided. That's what we call open file. And that's when you're using it in Word or Outlook, that's what it's doing. Or if you have a paid license, it can look at all of the company data in Microsoft that you have access to. So that's SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams meetings, etc. We're going to look at Copilot pages in a minute. Agent mode and agents, and that's turning from a back and forth conversation to something that's a defined process. Agents, that terminology or agentic AI comes from agency. That was the term we talked about a lot in anthropology. So that is, it can take action on its own. Now it's not totally independent. You've told it what actions it should be taking. But that's the kind of next step. We'll touch on that at the end of today. Prompts, so what you type in, and LLMs or large language models. So these are terms you've heard before. ChatGPT is an LLM. Grok is an LLM. Claude Sonnet is an LLM. So the specific AI tool doing the work on the back end. Before we move on, I'd love to open this up. Are there any other AI buzzwords or terms you're hearing a lot? We can clarify them for you. Chat or raise your hand. Okay. We'll come back to this too. We'll have time. All right, so first thing we want to do, and this is very important, we covered this in September, still applies. So make sure your staff are signed in to the Microsoft 365 Business Copilot app. So there are two versions of Copilot out there. Thanks, Microsoft. One is the consumer version, which you can use at home. The other is the work version. Consumer, and we're going to go take a look here in a second. So consumer looks like this. It's just called Copilot app, and that's personal email or no sign-in at all. It only works with web or files that you've dragged into the app, and it is used typically to train LLMs. So there is this risk of data exposure when you're bringing stuff onto that one. The biggest difference with the business version is it's controlled by the organization and it follows all the security rules that you in Advantage have put in for your data. So it's the same type of security around your emails. So these are like, HIPAA compliant, healthcare compliant, encrypted, all of those same protections apply to the business version of Copilot. So let's take a look at that. Make sure you're signed in okay. Feel free to play along here. So first off, I'm just going to go here, type in Copilot, and again, you may see a couple different versions here. I see Copilot and I see Microsoft 365. I'm going to open Copilot. And the first thing I want to do is I want to hit this little side menu and I want to see if I'm signed in. Now, this is the personal one. If I try to sign in with my work email, it is going to automatically direct me to the work version. So it takes the guesswork out of it for you. Don't worry about it if you're accidentally here. Once you sign in with your work email, it'll point you over to the correct version. It won't sign you in here. The correct version, M365, looks a little more business-like. Notice I got like flowers and stuff on the consumer version. Work's going to be a little more boring. And that's going to look like this one here. And I've got chat. The thing you want to look for in the bottom left is you want to make sure you see your name. And if you click on it, your work email there. That lets you know you're signed in. Now everything you're doing with it is fully protected and secured by Microsoft, same as your email. So it is safe to use. It's safe to put company data in here. We don't want people putting company data in consumer or unlicensed versions. We don't want to risk a data spill. Any questions about signing in before we move on, or security? Perfect. All
Put it
right.
on
So
mute.
now,
There.
Hmm.
Sorry, Russell. I was on mute and I was trying to
Oh, sorry.
talk. We did get a question.
Yeah.
What about accessing Copilot through Microsoft Office? Like, are they automatically logged in that way if
Yes.
they
That's a
access it?
great question. That is a great question. And yes, you are. So you want to just make sure you're signed into Office. And let me bring up here. I'm just going to bring up a Word document. So you just want to make sure you're signed in Office. At that point, you're protected by Business Copilot licensing. So up here, I can click on my little portrait. I see my company email. I'm signed in. So as long as you've got that up there, you're set. And then we can use Copilot right here, and it's going to fall under those same security protections. Great question. All right. So the first thing we want to cover today is not directly related to a new feature, but something we've learned over time and how to get better prompts. And this is a really good tip for all you folks that are just starting out. And it's very tempting to go to the AI and just say, hey, summarize this document. Uh, Whereas if you give it some what we call grounding in the industry, which is context, question, and framing, you get much more interesting results. So context is who you are, what your job role is, why you're asking this question, what your end goal is with the question. It may also be where you are or rules you're operating under, constraints and budgets. So you're basically giving Copilot background information on your question so it can give you a more nuanced answer. Framing is how you want to see that answer. And that's knowing your audience. You're going to have a different report that you want to give to the CEO versus a peer in your same department. Like, let's say you work in the accounting firm, you're summarizing something for another person in the accounting department, that's going to be different than delivering a summary to a client, how you organize that data. So we're very big believers in this rule of three. Let's go take a look at what that looks like in practice. So here is a sample. We work with a lot of grants foundations. So here is a sample healthcare grant application. This is comes to us from our friends at NIH. This is a pretty deep, detailed document. It is 39 pages. It is dense. It's not something I'm familiar with. So what I can do, and this is with the free version even, I'm going to do here, go to my M365 Copilot app. Now, just a refresh from September, if you have a paid license, you have two buttons up here, work and web. If you just have what's included, you don't see this, you're just doing web results. So in terms of where we're looking right now, we're going to look at a specific article. And let me do that. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to be on default. And I'm going to say summarize this document. And all I'm going to do here is paste in the web URL. So all I'm doing here is I'm asking a very simple request, summarize a specific document. And I'm going to get a kind of, with a general question like that, with a general, just give me a summary. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I need to drag it in. This is good, actually. So I didn't paste the URL. I did an internal file. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to drag my file in. So this is always something you can do even with the free version. You can always, this is what they call open files. So I can drag a document in, or if it's a public facing website, I can paste that in. I can drag in multiple documents if I want to compare two things. So this is something you can do just with the included. You don't need a special license here. So I've dragged my document in. Now I'm just going to say, summarize this grant application. And it's a very general question. I'm not telling it who I am. I'm not asking it how I want to see the information. So based on running this earlier, this is going to be a pretty long, involved, and not very focused summary. Now, it's obviously faster than reading through 39 pages, but is it going to get me to where I go? If I'm trying to present to our president, should we fund this grant application, he's going to have to dig through this. I don't know about your CEOs. Ours is not going to want to read through several pages of a summary. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop. I'm going to go back to a rule of three kind of prompt. So I'm going to drag my document in again. And this time I'm going to adopt a role. So I'm going to say I'm the grants coordinator for a grants foundation in Washington, D.C. That's some context awareness. And then I want to summarize a document, but I also want it in a particular format. So I'm going to say, please summarize this grant application with a table showing risk to the funding agency by weighted score. And let's get that running. So I'm going to get a very different output here. It's going to be a lot more condensed, and I'm looking for specific information, not just a general summary. So like most complex systems, the more information you can give the AI, the better and more nuanced an answer you'll get. So here, it's going to give me an executive summary. It usually is good at that. It gives me a very brief outline of what this grant application is. And now I start getting, these are really quick tables. If I'm the CEO, this is a lot faster for me to read than that whole big narrative. I also have the option to keep refining it at this point and say, hey, let's make it shorter, or let's expand on the risk methodology. So here's the specific thing I asked for, the funding risk assessment table with a weighted score. And it's telling me what that score weighting is based on, what the risk is, and that's going to help my CEO make a better decision on funding this grants application. So that's what we mean by the rule of three. If you can give it who you are, why you're asking, and then what you want to see, you're going to get much more useful information than just saying, give me a summary. Pause here for questions about that. I'm happy to demonstrate some more stuff there. If somebody has an example they're thinking of, that's fine too. Uh, Rule of three is a very easy key to success. Takes you 30 seconds longer to write it, can save you minutes and minutes, or even hours as you're going through the results. So we can come back to that. We'll see some other examples of that throughout the day. So the other one of the new features that has been added, and actually this was here last year, went away for a little while, came back 3 weeks ago, end of March, is you can now select different LLM choices. So what we've discovered over the years and what you've probably read about is that different LLMs are better at different kinds of tasks. You may find that ChatGPT is better at HR workflows than Claude is, or vice versa. You might find that Grok is better at image creation than either of those. So the interesting thing is this changes almost on a month-by-month basis. It's something that we're constantly keeping our eye on, but it's something that we also recommend that as we see new models, you test them out, you may find that the new one gives you better or more nuanced results than an older one. This was moving so fast that this is the case now in April of 2026. We'll probably have a different selection. In fact, I'm sure we will have a different selection of GPT models to use in 6 months. That's how fast this stuff is going. So we're going to take a look at this here in a minute, but we see we have different flavors of GPT. We also have Claude Sonnet under the paid license. Microsoft is a big investor in both OpenAI and Anthropic, and that's why they have access to these tools. One thing before we get over there to note is that Copilot is a little slower to get things like ChatGPT 5 than when ChatGPT releases it. Why is that? Because they are adding additional security controls to integrate it with Microsoft. So when it gets here, it's a little slower to get to you. It is typically more secure for important company data, though. So that's the trade-off. So we're going to do an example here of HOA pool management. We have a lot of clients that are property managers, and we're coming up on pool season at the end of Memorial Day weekend. So people are starting to get ready for opening up pools for the summer. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to do a new chat. And I'm just going to leave it. Now, auto is you're letting Copilot, basically Microsoft, decide which LLM is best for your question. And that works very well most of the time. Most of the time I stay on auto, but in this case, we're going to pick a different one. Now, paid license, I get Sonnet from Claude. Uh, Even with the included license, you now have multiple versions of GPT that you can select from. So I'd say before March, we were kind of on in Copilot 5.2. They've added the more recent versions, which have deeper capabilities and may give you better answers. So let's start out with Claude as an example. And I found a nice everything you need to know about HOA pool rules article. So I'm going to take this article, which is on a public website, and I'm going to paste it in here along with a rule of three prompt. So when I'm going to paste this in here. So I'm a community manager for a 400-unit apartment complex in Bowie, Maryland. Please help me prepare bullet points I can turn into slides for a PowerPoint deck for our staff to help them prepare for pool season opening Memorial Day using this page as a template. So I don't need to provide it a specific URL or external page, but I like this one. I want it to be grounded on this specific information because I think it's a good one. And it's going to bring in specific stuff. So let's run that with Sonnet and just see what we get here. Very quickly, here are your slide bullet points. Now, this is stuff I can paste into a PowerPoint. I can ask it to build a PowerPoint. I can paste these notes into Copilot in PowerPoint and ask it to build around me. I find that when I ask it to directly create a PowerPoint, it's going to give me the good slides. It won't give me good graphics. So that is absolutely something you can do. You can ask it to say, make the PowerPoint for me. You're going to have all those bullet points. You're still going to want to pretty them up for now. This is getting better though. So here we got, looks like, let's see, we got 9 slides. That's great. Now, I'm going to go into the same thing in the latest version of GPT I have access to. And you notice there's a quick response and a think deeper. So quick response is going to be very focused on that website I provided. I'm going to show you what happens when I do think deeper. So I'm pasting the exact same prompt that I pasted before in. I haven't changed a word. And now I'm going to do a different LLM and I'm going to get different results. Now, I asked it to think deeper. It's going to take a little longer. And what we see here is that I'm asking a different LLM to prepare this. It's going to look at the same sources, but it's going to organize them differently. I'm going to end up with a different set of slides than I had originally. And we can look at that. We've got slightly different titles. We've got slightly different headings. I ran this earlier. I'm actually going to pause this and go over to that. When I ran it earlier today, notice Claude, we got 9 or 10 slides. When I do GPT 5.4, I get 13 slides. So it is definitely organizing differently, and this is where you come in. You're going to look at the results. You're going to decide, hey, which is the most useful for my team, or do I want to change my prompt slightly to get a different outcome? Now, one nice thing I like about the deep thinking here is it's also looking, because I gave it context. I told it I was a community manager in Bowie, Maryland. In this case, we can see the deep thinking mode is gathering local info. It is looking for pool regulations in Bowie, Maryland. It is looking for Prince George's County, Maryland apartment pool opening requirements. I can also, to be sure it does this, ask it to do that in the prompt. So different LMs give you different results. And I'm not going to tell you, here's the one you should use, because that's going to be different next month. My advice here is play around with them, find out which is giving you better results and which gives you better results for different types of work. So take advantage of it. If you don't want to deal with that, just stay on auto. That's going to get you 90% of the way there. I expect to see additional ones, like I said, coming. So now let's talk a little more about that grounding and looking at Prince George's County. So grounding is the main differentiator for when you need a paid license or not. So we touched on this earlier. There's web, which is external sites. That's anything publicly posted to the internet can be searched. You can leave it open, in which case the AI will do its own guesses and assumptions on what sites are good to reference. But as you saw, I can also paste in specific sites. So I can guide it or I can leave it up to the AI. Open file is things that I've dragged in. It's dragging in that PDF. It's linking to a specific document. And this is also the case when we're working on a document in the Office suite. And the last one is work data. It's a little more nuanced. This is the big difference between this is free or this is included web and open file. Work data requires the paid license. The difference there is it is contextually going to work at everything that you have access to in SharePoint, in OneDrive, in calendars, in meeting notes, anything in Microsoft, it will go look at with that paid license. And that's the gate. So let's look at how that actually plays out. So we're going to give it a little example here again. I'm going to do a new chat and I'm going to stay on the web version. I'm going to be free or included right now. And I've got a document from Intel on a laptop buyer's guide. So here are different laptops that came out from Intel. In this scenario, I'm going to be the IT manager for a manufacturer in Maryland, a lawnmower plant, and give it a little bit of context there. That's going to skew the answer versus if I just say, which laptop should I get? Copilot's probably going to assume I'm a regular consumer, and it's going to give me that kind of answer. So what I need to do here is drag my file in. I could also point to the website it's at. It scans the file, and now I can paste in my prompt. And I've already typed this out to save us some time today. So I'm the IT manager for a 100-employee lawnmower plant in Maryland. What's most important selecting a business laptop? Please generate a short bullet point list. And I'm going to leave this on auto. In a moment here, I'm going to get a prompt or an answer. Now, the interesting thing is, again, right now it's only looking at the document I pointed it to, along with some general notes. Because I gave it context, because I used the rule of three, it's doing some thinking for me. So it knows that, oh, a manufacturing plant, well, I know that we're going to prioritize laptops that are practical, durable, easy to manage at scale. It's not going to get me the consumer laptop that weighs 2 pounds but will break if I drop it, right? So it knows that because I told it I was a manufacturer and I'm going to get some answers. If I go to work, which requires a paid license, at that point, I can ask it the same question. I could drag the same file over, but what it's going to do is it's going to look through my SharePoint. It's going to look for documents like this, the Advantage Industries Recommended Laptops and Workstation Guide that we publish every quarter. So this is company information, and this includes things like the Advantage design philosophy, how we select laptops. So it's not going to operate totally independently. It's not going to go out to the internet. It's going to ground the results in how Advantage does things and our policies and procedures. But I could give it the same prompt and I'll get a different answer now because I'm work grounding. And I'm going to drag that same file over and I'll get different answers. So I'm going to bring this up, have a little short quiz, and let's see if we can spot the grounding. Okay, so what I've done here is just to go back and refresh a second. I've done web grounded, I've done open file, with a specific Intel document that I got from our vendor, and then I've done a work data grounding. So of these, and everybody just pop it in the chat, what do you think is the one grounded on the Intel document on that specific file I provided? That's open file. And just type the number in. Take a moment to look at it. All right, well, I want to answer that, so I'm going to give it away.
No, everybody's
Yeah,
being shy.
that's all right. That's all right. So number two, and there are a couple ways to give that. Now, one thing I like about Copilot is it cites the source. So you know where that data is coming from. This is especially good when you're web grounding, because you want to make sure that's a good website that it's looking at. It's a trusted site. So I'm a big fan of always clicking on this little button in my Copilot window to see, oh, where are you getting that info from? Now this one, it's full of Intel terms, right? Here's what Intel thinks is going to be the decision points for a laptop. And this is pretty good. Um, if I just go general, if I just ask the web without providing any sources, then I'm going to get a very general list. So it's very, there's not a lot of concrete there. It's kind of open, it's a little fuzzy, and it doesn't have any idea of what roles or how my company works. Uh, this one, number one here, is going to be grounded in company data, work data. So here we've got business class laptops aligned to approved models and vendors. We have a 5-year life cycle that we're targeting. We require Windows 11 Professional. We size performance to role, and we prioritize supportability, warranty coverage, and standardized equipment. So it's going to look at that Intel document. It's going to recommend products from that Intel document for me, but it is using our own internal SharePoint data as a source. So I'm going to get our take, Advantage's take, on which machine to get, not a generic take. And that's where the power of that paid license starts coming in. So this is a case where if you have folks that are dealing with a lot of internal documents, that's their job role. These may be people like project managers, for instance, dealing a lot of internal and external communication. That's a case where that paid license starts making sense. I could do this without a paid license by finding our recommended laptops and workstations guide and dragging it into the app, but it takes time, right? I have to go find, I have to know what document I need to ground it. I need to go find it, and I need to go drag it into the app. That's okay if I'm only doing that once a week. If I'm needing to do that multiple times a day, that starts becoming inefficient and the paid app starts making more sense. It could also be the case where somebody's dealing with so many documents, such a large data set. I'm thinking of our accounting folks, where not having to hunt for stuff, letting the AI do the hunting for you carries a lot of power. So, and let's just, all right, now other things that we're seeing here too, pop this on. Microsoft did add some app enhancements, and I'll show you this in a second. Conversations have evolved. They now have libraries and notebooks. So a conversation is a back and forth in and of the moment. Eventually, it loses older parts of the conversation. It sort of automatically forgets over time. So you can reference a conversation from yesterday and it'll know exactly what you're talking about. You may not be able to reference a conversation from last month. So we'll take a look at that. Library is a place where you can save stuff and go back where conversations won't forget over time. So you know this is something that I'll be using a lot. In notebooks, and I always think of these crazy conspiracy theory boards when I come to notebooks, hence the picture. Notebooks are where you can have multiple conversations and attach supporting documents in one place. So let's take a quick look at those in the app. And this is in the M365 app. So anything here, chats and conversations are the same thing. They've actually rebranded that. So in this case, I can go back to the pool season conversation. And I can ask it something contextual based on the work it's already done. So, you know, which are the key slides to emphasize in live training? So I can ask it something contextual about what we've already talked about here. It's going to look at that conversation history that we just created and build on that. So this is also one of a good, really important AI and Copilot tip is if you don't get your rule of three correct the first time, it's okay. You haven't lost that work. You can refine the data conversationally as you go. I want to see this in a different way. This bullet point list isn't going to work for my colleague who likes narratives. Give me 3 paragraphs. And it will look at what it's already created. It doesn't need to redo it. It'll condense it. It'll change the format for you. So here we go. I've got highest priority slides to emphasize in. These chats or conversations, if I come back in a month, and you can search for them right here with the spyglass. It may or may not, I can see everything, but the AI may not go back and reread everything. I may have to ask it to go back and look at our previous chat or conversation notes. If I want to save something, I now have the option to add it to a notebook, which is part of the library. So at this point, I could say add to notebook, and I can just call this pool opening, make a new one. Create that. Here is if I have any specific internal documents I want to reference or add as part of that notebook. And now I have chats, anything I've added, and it's not going away. And I can always find that by expanding my notebooks here, clicking on a particular notebook, and it's going to have all of that chat history. It's going to have a general summary for me if I'm sharing this with anybody else. What is this notebook about? And then I can go look at specific notes, documents, and chats. So they've added a little more history for us so you can keep working with the AI on an idea repeatedly over time. Go back to my chat. The other thing, and I think David and I touched on this last October, is you can, as part of these notebooks and libraries, you can add supporting documents. So if I click on Sales Cycle Agent, let's say I do want to reference an internal file, an Advantage document. Here, I can just add a reference by let's say I want to add that Intel buyer's guide, I can just drag it into here. And now when I'm asking the AI Copilot any questions, it's going to look at the web. It's also going to look at that document that I added. And if you want a little more on this, I think go back to the October webinar too. So they've made it a little easier to navigate that. They've made it easier to go back to historic conversations if you save them. Let's go back to here. So we have those, we have the ULM options, we have the conversations. Now, what's worth paying for? So if you're working with 1 or 2 files at a time, Copilot Chat is really good. And most roles at most of our clients, that's good enough. We use that example from property management, for preparing for pool training. That's a great case where you don't need a paid license for that. The documentation is fairly contained and discreet. Here's a couple websites I'm looking at. Here's an internal policy handbook that my company has prepared. And I can drag these things directly into the Microsoft app and ask it my rule of 3 question and get very good results. Now, if you need to connect dots across emails, meetings, files, and Teams, that's where the paid license starts coming in. So an example of that is if I have a meeting with Sonia, we're talking about what are we planning for next month's webinar in the M365 Copilot app. I can now ask it to reference all my meetings with Sonia for the last month and the meeting transcripts I recorded. What's our next step on the webinar? I have to take less time looking for specific files and documents. So when you have staff that are using multiple files and documents all the time, they're the ones that are going to save time having a paid license, that contextual across company awareness. Also, again, roles where their job has a lot of review of multiple internal documents, multiple client contexts. At our company, we like doing paid licenses for client account managers, salespeople, people that have a lot of meetings and need to be able to access all that data quickly without having to hunt for it or download the transcript. Again, you could still work around this. You can go to Teams, you can go to your meeting recording, you can download a transcript file as a Word document and drag it in, but you've now had to take the time to find all of that. Whereas in the paid version, I can just say, hey, reference any meetings with Sonia or reference meetings from the specific dates. And it will do all that legwork for me. So what does that look like in the license? Base price is $30 a month a user, which is a lot, right? Your Office license is usually only $22 for most users. So it is more to have that contextual awareness. One nice thing, this is a change just in March, they are now available month by month, so you can test licenses out, find out if it's appropriate for different users. There are no seat count restrictions. Licenses are assigned per person. You can have one person in your company with a paid license, or you can have everybody in the company with a paid license. It is completely your or anything in between. So that's completely your discretion. We very strongly recommend you're assigning licenses by role and job functions. Um, Most cases, it's not all or nothing. And there are now bundle plans that make this a lot easier. So to that, we're going to do a little test here. So I've got kind of three employee types. And first is going to be an operations leader managing many projects, meetings, email threads. They've got vendors they're working with, they've got clients they're working with, they've got internal meetings. What do people think for this one? Go ahead and type it in the chat. Are they going to benefit from a paid license or not?
Got a one and a two.
Yep, yep, yep. I like that. So I agree. And thank you, Rich, for participating. So yeah, one, that's very much a paid license kind of person. That's the kind of thing where having that paid license, having to not go look for meeting transcripts, having to not go look for policy handbooks or artifacts, that could save that person half an hour a day. Potentially, depending on their workload. So the half an hour a day, that's easily worth $30 a month by the time you add up their salary and burden. That's a great choice. Number two, that's an interesting one. I think in a lot of cases, yes, the paid license is good, but this is the one there to actually probably test out a little bit. This might be a case where, if they're only processing one document at a time, they might not need that. Remember, we still have all the same security around it, so it's safe for them to use it without a paid license because they're signed in. But if it's only one at a time or they're only doing one report, maybe they don't need that license. So that's the kind of case where I'd say, let's test them. Let's do a month by month for a couple months. Let's see what the usage is and are they getting value from that part of it? And we can help you review that. Number three, that's going to be like, say, a community manager, or it could be a shift supervisor at a plant. typically preparing one email, one document, one thing at a time, on one specific task. If they do need company information, they can go grab that document, drag it in, but most of the time they don't. And here's, I'd say, yeah, they don't need a license. Most average employees who are just working on one thing at a time don't need that license. And examples, and I just wanted to show you because this is probably good too, where you're going to see it in Word. So even without that license, it's going to work in Word. It's going to work in Excel. It's going to work in Outlook. So let's go back to this document here. In Word, I've got a nice Copilot button up here. I can hit that and I'll get a chat prompt. If I don't have that additional license, it is grounded on this document I'm looking at. But I can do most of the things I want to do. So I could highlight a section. So let's say rewrite this. Sometimes that's easier actually doing this. And I'm just going to say Copilot, and I'm going to say auto rewrite, and it'll kind of look at the whole document. Who am I addressing it to? What's the tone? Rewrite it for me. I'm a big fan of make it shorter. If AIs can kind of go a little bit long, so make it shorter, and Copilot's done that for me. It doesn't need to go anywhere else. It's just grounded on this document, so anybody can use that kind of feature. And right here, I'll just say replace, and it's going to input the change for me. Even Excel, believe it or not, again, is going to work well for a lot of folks unless you need to look at multiple spreadsheets and be more contextually aware. So in this case, I actually popped in a prompt here. I love kind of Copilot in Excel. I said this was financial data. This is sample data that Microsoft provides. And if I need to look at the highest revenue month, that's easy enough to sort and filter, right? I wanted to be a little more fancy. So here I said, compare profit margins across different segments: government, mid-market, enterprise, small business. So it is going to go through here, reasons it out, actually built an additional tab for me with graphs showing this comparison. Pretty nifty. And that took about 60 seconds to run. So that's again something that I don't need a paid license to do. I've got quite a lot of capabilities. So our advice would be, if you're kind of on the fence, let's put that person on a month-by-month trial and let's see how it works for them. We can always cancel that or extend it and save you money on an annual term at that point. So right here, Copilot button again. In Outlook, you will see a Copilot button right here. And again, this should be available to everybody now. If for some reason you don't see it, open a ticket with us. Let us know. Watching our time here. So let's talk about the money side of things. So I actually have good news for you. We had big Microsoft license increases last year. Copilot was more expensive than any of the normal Microsoft licenses. The nice thing is they've added month by month. They've also added new bundles, which we're starting to take advantage of. So we are having a price increase in July. And Microsoft is increasing prices on Business Basic and Business Standard because they built Copilot in. And they flat out said, we've added new features. That's why the cost is going to go up $1 or $2. So $6 to $7, not a big change. Microsoft Business Premium, which most of our clients are on for their computer users, is not going to change at all. Now, the exciting stuff is there are these new bundles. So rather than having to do 6 plus 30, you're going to be able to only pay 28. Your cost will actually drop a little bit if you've already been doing that user with a Copilot license. More common is going to be Business Premium. Instead of paying 52, with the bundle discount, you're only going to pay 43. So kind of nice that that's happening. I was a little pleasantly surprised on that, but I'm very appreciative. So it's easier to get. Pricing here, just a quick note, these are annual, paid annually. Add 5% if you're doing annual, paid monthly. Add 20% if you're going to do month by month. So again, we do recommend test it out month by month if you're unsure, and then we'll switch to annual if you're sure. And that'll save you a good amount of money, 20%. Questions about licenses and bundles before we move on. If you're an Advantage client, reach out to your client success manager. Very good. All right, so next steps. Um, web grounding policy and sign-in standards. Basically, we really recommend at this point, you are asking all your staff to sign into Copilot. It protects them, keeps them from using other tools, which may or may not be as secure. So use Copilot. They all have access to it. Doesn't cost you anything extra if they have an email account from your company. Get them signed in and using it. Uh, we want to train your staff on the rule of three, context, question, and framing. They're going to get better results. They're going to save a lot of time. The AI is going to be a lot smarter if they do that. And we're always happy to help you with that. Uh, then we recommend, if you're piloting, choose 5 or 10 users that you think are going to benefit from that contextual licensing, being able to look at meetings, being able to look at company data without having to go hunt for it. We can test it with them. Let's measure outcomes. We can measure usage and see who's benefiting of it. They become your pilot and the evangelist, and it gives you direction on the rest of that department or team. And then stretch goal is building a prompt library, looking at different deployed agents over time. We're not going to hit on this today, but David and I did do a webinar on Copilot agents in the fall. We are going to have some updates for you in a couple months here too. Agents are getting more powerful, easier to leverage. The agent next step is really to turn what you've been testing out with your conversations, with your chats back and forth. Let's turn that into a full procedure. Let's formalize that process so the output is always the same, no matter which person on your staff is using it. So again, we'll hit more of that in a couple months, but I do recommend you go back and check out that previous webinar if you want to learn a little more about formal agents and the power there. Agents really turn it into operational for teams versus one-on-one usage. So we're running a little long. I do want to stop for questions. I am available to run over a little bit too if we need to, or I can hang on with folks. So at this point, let's open it up for questions. I think, the big takeaway is you've got it, it's included, start using it, and then figure out who needs additional licensing. What questions do we got?
I don't see any yet, but I just wanted to add also just for, I guess from the marketing perspective too, is that I know that AI, it's the buzzword that we're hearing, and it does provide a lot of great information, but I think it's always important to also remember that the information it provides, we don't want to give 100% trust in the accuracy.
Yes.
So you always want to, like, the human element is very
Yeah.
important, that you
Yeah.
read through the information that it does provide, because there may be times when there's something that's wrong in there. So just kind of keep that
I
in the
love
back of your
that.
mind, especially when you're working hard and doing things quickly. I think sometimes we just trust in it a little bit more than maybe we
Right.
should at times.
And don't be the person that just summarize, generates something in AI and doesn't read it and just fires it off to everybody else. Take the time to read it, trust but verify. It could be embarrassing, it could be wrong. Sonia and I recently looked at a request for proposal, and AIs are also good at telling you what you want to hear. And I said, oh yeah, absolutely, you should participate on this. And I could have at that point started working on the response to the proposal. I could have spent hours on that. Actually reading through it myself, I realized like, okay, we can handle a quarter of the work this organization needs. The other 3/4 we can't. And the AI had only focused on the part we could handle. That part, yeah, sure. We're not the solution for three-quarters of what they need, though. It would be a waste of time for me to participate on that. When I went back and challenged Copilot and said, hey, I'm concerned about this, it said, oh, you're absolutely right. But it didn't say that initially. So trust but verify, treat it like a junior employee. They're smart, they've got a lot of information at their fingertips, may not have the experience you have. That's where you come in. People are so important. This is a tool. Yeah, we're not looking to replace people. We're looking to speed you up, make you smarter and faster. It still depends on you, though. All right,
I don't
so
see any questions. Yeah.
yeah. If you are a current Advantage client and have questions about this, do contact your client success manager, Phil, Deanna, Antoine. They will get us started, help you out. If you're not a current client, contact us at sales or send me an email, rsmith@getadvantage.com. Happy to talk through it. We're having a lot of conversations where let's figure out how we approach this. Let's figure out the best way to get these tools into your staff's hands and navigate the training.
All right.
All right, folks,
Well,
thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Thank
You
you.
have a great rest of the day.